South African journalists have been challenged by the Media Review Network on whether public broadcasters, private and commercial, should platform people justifying Israel's actions against Palestinians. This is the question of Hasbara. Experts say Israel's state-backed Hasbara campaigns, going into millions and billions of dollars, tries to reshape global perceptions. But the propaganda isn't working. Online is Hassen Lorgat, a media justice activist. Hassen, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Shafiq. Good to hear you.
And of course the question is, and this was raised by Iqbal Jassat in an article that was in fact put up on the Muslim Views platform, and the question is it acceptable for the public broadcaster in particular to normalize Hasbara by platforming agents who justifies Israel's rationale to victimize them? It's a strange situation where SABC in particular, and I'm picking on them today, just don't seem to learn.
That's true. We, Media Review Network, People's Media Consortium, Palestine Solidarity Alliance, various of these groups, the Cape Town Solidarity Group, the Palestine Campaign, all of us with the South African Jews for Free Palestine sought a meeting with the SABC board. They unilaterally cancelled that meeting last week, and I guess they knew what they were doing. They unilaterally set it up and they unilaterally cancelled it. And when I put up a post on my Facebook page to say this to people, a number of board members were shocked that there was actually a meeting scheduled to discuss issues of how they report the genocide. And it looks like, subsequent to that, it looks like Roland Marx and others had a free rein on the SABC. And while the spoof, this image that shows her there as an SABC correspondent exaggerates the issue, it is true that when they have them in the studio, as they did last week, I think Thursday or so, on Sakina Kamwenda's show, she was not there, but that they simply let them have a free rein. They say what they lie, they talk about, I said they say what they lie. In fact, this is exactly where they're going. They talk so much lies that they might as well be the spokesperson for one of the correspondents. They present themselves as being knowledgeable. There is not sufficient pushback against these people with facts. If you're going to play this game of outsiderism, then you've got to make it uncomfortable for those who come into the studio. This is not happening inside the SABC. They've been giving all of them regular coverage every day just to perpetrate lies and to undo the defeat that they've suffered in terms of ideas and politics in the world. Because Hasbara is about selling a story that benefits Israel, explaining that what Israel is doing, and historically they try to show that they're on the side of justice and of morality. But when people put that image alongside the image of the devastation, the genocide in Gaza, the daily weeping and crying for food, water, clearly they've lost the battle in image and in our hearts. People know that Hasbara doesn't work. The SABC bosses, not the workers, they know that this is wrong, but for some reason it looks like the Jewish Board of Deputies, the Zionist Federation affiliate, they seem to have something on our board, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was just thinking while you were talking, people such as Tucker Carlson and even Charlie Kirk would have done a better job than Roland Marx. Right-wingers who are beginning to realize that, hang on a minute, everything is not as what it seems. And they are now speaking out against what's happening. But what I think the public should find objectionable is that you have to have balance in media. Yes, everybody has a right to have their say. And sometimes you might even have a right to speak nonsense. But nonsense has to be challenged. And I think, as you correctly pointed out, the problem here is giving somebody who none of us in the media know, who the hell is this woman anyway? Never seen her byline anywhere in the media. What is she doing on the SABC, and why are there no journalists who know what's going on the ground there to counter her narrative?
Well, Shafiq, she is known as a spokesperson for the Jewish Board of Deputies based in Israel.
But sorry to interrupt you, Hassen. A spokesperson is not a media practitioner, and spokespeople are there to be challenged by media practitioners.
Exactly. Yeah, so she's not, I think the spoof, the image that shows that she's an SABC correspondent is a naughty play by activists. Ultimately,
yes.
the activists were trying to expose that the way she gets such regular airtime, she looks like she's a correspondent, right? And this is the joke about it. So, so much so that SABC board members have been very concerned, and a number of senior people in SABC say, no, she doesn't work for us. I said, well, if she doesn't work for you, clearly cut the crap. Let me raise the issue about two sides, or hearing another side, the audio alteram partem view. If there's a motor car accident somewhere there, and the witnesses having different views, and listen, that's different. But here we're talking at the height of a genocide, where over 100,000 people have been killed. We don't know the umpteenth number under the rubble. And at least their own figures suggest we're creeping closer to 70,000. So to have both sidism in this particular moment, I think is wrong, because you're trying to feign neutrality. But then in the piece that I actually articulated, I argued that if you're going to get someone into the studio, right? There was I think this quote, and I think you guys always use it about the rain. You know, it is by a professor, Dr. Jonathan Foster, who says if someone says it's raining, and another person says it is dry, it is not your job just to quote them both. It's your job to look out of the window and find out which is true.
100%, yes.
This is what they are failing. And in my piece, I actually quoted Jody Ginsburg, the executive director of the Committee to Protect Journalists, who says, you know, that they're basically arguing against this fake neutrality, this fake balance. She says, you know, basically, and the quote is, I am surprised that people were less willing to do the work that we all believe is necessary to be a journalist, to ask difficult questions, to ask for proof, to ask for evidence. Our job is not simply to parrot what we are told, to quote one side and the other side. Our job is to go and investigate, to understand what really happened. And if you do that, you want to insist on getting him in the studio to say, no, babies are being killed in incubators. And if they can't answer this, really, we can't continue. But, you know, to give them this airtime just to lie, to say that Mandla Mandela and others were carrying no aid on the ship, and, you know, the flotillas, it is so tragic. In fact, to show this mockery, I'm going to talk to activists. We need to, every time they say that, there should be a right of reply to Mandla and others who had these things on the boat. Because this game they want to play, we can play that game too.
No, absolutely. Sometimes I have found in past incidences where I've gone down the road of a right to reply, it becomes something of a circus, because the people demanding right of reply, when you put them on air, they can't actually face the heat. Seriously. So we are dealing with a what-if kind of a scenario. But I do think that as a media practitioner, again, that the time does come, and I was asked this question during the 80s and 90s when somebody said, Shafiq, you can't be neutral here, and I agree that objectivity is a myth in journalism, that you have to actually take a side, and you have to take the right side. I'm sure you sort of understand what I'm trying to say through all the verbiage.
Yes. I mean, Tutu I like to quote. He was saying when the elephant's got its foot on the tail of a mouse, you can't tell them, you know, that they're being neutral. I mean, the poor mouse is fighting back, you know. So clearly, you know, this idea, this is what wanted the SABC to realize, that if you wonder, why is it that seemingly the media sphere, civil society groups, large sections of them, are so opposed to the government, right, around this issue? You know, the case that I took up around the funding of the Jewish Board of Deputies for the Citizen and Sunday Times, you know, it has not been spoken out by any of the major freedom of expression bodies. You know that the SABC has not reported that as a violation of media integrity and justice. They don't touch it. Why? Why is it? And this is one of the articles that I'll finish, Shafiq, and I'll send it to you, because that is the issue where I'm going to name each of these groups that have failed to speak out on this particular issue. Because Peter Louis Myburgh speaks about people trying to bribe him with 60,000 and additional stuff like that. But the truth be told, that this is a form of bribery, equally, if not more pernicious, because a powerful lobby group has been involved.
No, absolutely. And of course, I mean, this is the burning question as to how you manage to stay in the right space as a journalist. And of course, this also asks questions to other issues in the media industry where newsrooms have been gutted, news institutions have been asset stripped to the extent where myself, who've been in the media for many years, are actually shocked that some journalists who are working journalists don't even know what's in the Constitution even. There's no institutional memory, and there's no memory of how things should be done. I think this is reflective of the fact that media itself is in a crisis.
Media is also part of business, you see. So when the commercial interests get compromised, everyone talks about the juniorization of the media, but the guys who took these big decisions for people to go to another country to cover a lie about what was happening there, they were doing it willingly. They knew it was a genocide. The political parties that went there, ACDP and others, during April as well, went there knowing full well, and they came back to say there's no apartheid and there's no genocide. So clearly, these guys are agents, and I always have said, Shafiq, not to you, but I've said in other interviews, the fourth estate supposedly is supposed to be a check on power. They now seem to be becoming embroiled in power and not keeping the government accountable. Because the government in this particular matter, with all its faults, is on the right side of history. They took the ICJ case and they stood tall. And what our media does is to go against them. Some sections of our media, our community radio stations, Muslim Views, various of these other bodies have been brilliant. But I'm talking about mainstream, seem to have let us down.
No, that they certainly have. I mean, just to give an anecdotal example, this does got nothing to do with the Israel question, but it shows you how things work. Tony Hurd, and I was associated with the Cape Times in the days when Tony Hurd was coming to the end of his career, was exposing a lot of anti-apartheid stuff, and he was the first guy that published something on Oliver Tambo. This caused a major ruckus, and somebody called Stephen Mulholland, who... Right. Yeah, basically put the brakes on Tony Hurd, and after that he lost his job for trying to speak to truth. And Mulholland was worried because advertisers, certain advertisers, no names, no pactoral, were threatening to pull their advertising from the Times Media Group as it was at the time if they carried on this trajectory. And Tony Hurd, a man of truth, became a victim.
But you see, Shafiq, what you raise is important. These issues of integrity does talk to whether there's financial sustainability for newspapers or for media or for journalism as a whole. And I fear this is what's happened with the SABC. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the meeting with the board, to say we understand your precarious financial situation, that you depended on advertisers. We understand that. But how can we be an ally to make sure that you do not compromise on speaking truth to power, exposing lies where you find them, and empower the public discourse? And they refuse to have this discussion with us. It's now going to the ICASA, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and if the ICASA rules, SABC will have to step into line, that's for sure. Otherwise, if the SABC doesn't step into line with the ICASA, they can actually lose their license, and I don't think anybody will notice them going anywhere.
This is why I think they got a shock, because I eventually went to them.
Yes.